Yesterday we covered the case of Tchomen and how you'd measure your Tchom of your city, and also happens when another city happens to be within your Tchom. Right, so we're measuring that. Now we're going to continue on Samach Aleph about one of those such cases of trying to measure to the Tchom. Okay, so again, so here's our case. We got a big city and a small city where the big city can, its Tchom will swallow the small city, but the small city will not swallow up the whole of the big city. So their Tchumen will be different. Okay, so right, so you're saying the difference is when you're measuring, right? If it swallows the whole city, then the whole city becomes like the Alabama, and therefore you can get much farther. But if you don't swallow the whole city, you only get part of the way in, and then that's it. So now we're a couple lines down. We're of ED. So right, so sort of Edie, who had said that who had mentioned about having the two cases, who said that he doesn't know any svara behind why you would be able to differentiate between when you finish in the middle of the city versus when it swallows it. He didn't understand why. He was like, okay, well, I mean, it must be that with the words of prophecy, we have no idea why. Now we're trying to see why that is. So verbi idi anche tani umukim la benote. Well, moded lotna. So again, so idi is the one who said that it doesn't make sense. Right. So the rest of the large city can walk the entirety of the large city, as we said. That anche gdola mahalchem et kol yirtana, anche yirtana, ve'en anche yirtana mahalchem et kol yirtana. Right. So that's the Mishnah. We're trying to understand why he doesn't understand it. So basically, he says there's two types of anche, and he doesn't understand the case where you put your Eruv outside of it. So in order to make our Edie's opinion, why he doesn't understand, so it must be that he places the Eruv outside of the city, and that's why you wouldn't. You place your tchum in the other city. That way, you get the other city's tchum, and that would allow you to all of a sudden be able to walk the area of both cities, even though you're residing in a small city. Right, so that's what he says that he learned. He didn't learn, but about moded lotanam. He did not learn the fact that the 2000 amot becomes the 4 amot. That part he doesn't hold of. Okay, so as far as the difference in the way your tchum goes, so this is relevant if you're trying to get to a nearby city and you happen to be living in the smaller town. Then you'd want to place before Shabbos, you want to drive over your Eruv to the next town over, like to the bigger town, because that way it'd hopefully include your city as well. Hello, is that really the case where we're not talking about measuring the tchum, we're just talking about the city of where you are for Shabbos? So that's not. What do you mean the only thing that we're learning about is the where he's basing himself? Didn't we also learn by the case of the person who's a surveyor who's measuring, that if he ends up getting his measurement in the middle of the caves, and then that's it. So right, means that it stops in the middle. So everything should be for the cities. So no. So here it's trichalei below not. No, this is necessary according to Yeshua the Levi. When the measurement ends when the measurement overlaps and swallows. So that's why it says that the moded afil b'sof b'nato kol mara means that you don't treat the whole that in order for the case of counting as dalamot to go into effect, you need to actually reach the entirety of the area. Amar Rav Nachman, man tani anshe lo mishtabesh, man tani ein anshin lo mishtabesh. Whether or not in the case of the small and big city, it says that the residents of the small city may walk the entirety of the large city, or if it says that the Small city may not walk through the large city. Either way, you could read it either way, and it could still work. So now he's going to explain what he means. Man detani anshe lo mishtabish, temukim la benote. Right, so the case where the small, again, we're inverting the original case. The case where we say that you say the anshe of the Yertani can walk from the Yertani. So what is the case there? That's where you place your Eruv from the people in the small city place their Eruv Chumen in the large city. That way they can walk to the big city as well as their small little city that's included in the large city's Tchum. And if the case is the fact that you can't walk an entirety of the large city also is okay, because that's the case of somebody who's measuring, right? If somebody had placed their Eruv Chumen outside of the city, and when they're measuring the 2,000 amot and it gets to the middle of the city, then that's it, right? You stop wherever that measurement happens to be, and that's as far as you can go. So that's what the case would have been. Okay, so interesting. It all depends on. So we're not changing the rules. We're just changing the where you have placed your Tchum and where your area of Tchum and what that means at the end of the day. So right. So again, so we're missing some things. So let's explain it again, flesh it out a bit more. So right, because we had a very short line of the Mishnah there, but really here's the full version that includes everything that we just been discussing. Anshe ir gedola, mahalchan et kol ir ktana. Ve'in anshe ir ktana, mahalchan et kol ir gedola. Right, so that's the part of the Mishnah that we recognized. Right, big city can walk the small city cannot walk the large city. So what's that case? Again, we're still on, as far as the picture goes, we're still on the same picture right here. When do we say we got a problem? Somebody's measuring out their we would measure out the 2,000 amot. Aval misha hayabir gdola v'niach ervo bir ktana. Hayabir ktana v'niach ervo bir gdola. Mahalech et kula v'chutz ola alpayim. Right. So when somebody decided that they're making their Eruv from where they're from a set location, that's when we're into these issues. But if you had decided that you're residing in a city, the measurement doesn't go by measuring 2,000 amot from where you are and then get it to the side in the middle. It'll simply be 2,000 amot from the outskirts of the city and then swallowing up what's around it. So Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rami bar Abba, Amar Rav Huna. Here she'yoshevet al svat hanachal, im yesh lefaneh daka arba'a modedin la misvat hanachal, v'im lav en modedin la ela mipetach beito. So if somebody is, they've got a city by the edge of on the edge of a river, right? And then you decided to put a little daka. Here, do you have where's the daka? That is the son of the Nachal. Aleph is the there's the dock over there. Maybe that's like a little it's a little curve on the top here. That's supposed to be the dock just to separate between the city and the river. Okay, so if there's 4 amot, then you measure from the edge of the river. But if not, then you only get from the edge of your house, right? So basically, if you put up the little fence to protect you from falling down into the river, that's considered enough. But if you don't, then that means that you have to measure only from the house line, property line, right where the house is. Right. So Daka Arba Amot Amart on Allah. The Beit said, you said this barrier has to be 4 amot high, which is much higher than the normal 10 tachim that we normally are requiring. So Maishna we call Daka Amad Arba. Right. So but Daka, so Daka as opposed to normal walls are only 4 tachim wide. So I'm saying, like, wait, why does this wall have to be 6 amot? Right. That seems to be very sturdy and not a Daka at all if it's 6 amot. So the difference is that here when we're talking about the edge of the right where they're leading down into the river. So therefore, it's a little scary if you don't have a sufficient wall here. Therefore, we wouldn't let you use all the way up to the edge. But that's what we need. Right. So the normal case when we have a DACA, you have from upstairs to downstairs. Like nobody's scared they're going to fall off so much. You don't need a 6-foot wall, a 2-meter tall wall. Good enough to have a, like a little something that way you don't like walk over the edge. But here, right, because it's by somewhere dangerous, that's why we need a bigger wall. So, okay. Okay, so Amar Rav Yosef, Na'an Aminala. So where do we know this difference? Depending on how steep based on how dangerous the area is, that we change the rules for walls. So the Tanya right? Tehiti Rabbi Shiu, Bnei Gader, Yordim Lechamatan, Ve'em Bnei Chamatan, Ulim Gader. So the right, the people who live in Gader could go to Chamatan, but not the reverse. My time Allah Mishim Dahani Avodaka, Vahani Lo Avodaka. Do not say that this is because one of them made a right. See in the picture, because people in Gader are at the top of the mountain, some at the bottom of the mountain. So why is that? So is it not because people in the people in Gader had had a DACA over here, and that's what gave them a large border, whereas down there they did not. And that's why their courage comes on, but not the reverse. Because otherwise it should work the same way for both cities. So why is it only for one, not the other one? So there's a DACA between which gave the larger border. The other one still didn't reach all the way to the city. Kiat Amar Tatruki Metatargi Lehu Bnei Gader Lefnei Chamtan My Yitir Yitkin. So now we have the Ravdimi, right, who was one of the Moraim who used to travel between Eretz Yisrael and Babel. So he said that this has nothing to do with the actual with loss of Tchumen, rather it's because people who live in Gader would insult the people who live in Chamtan. What does it mean by Bermuda Nasi allowed people in Gader to go to Chamtan, not vice versa? Meaning he made these laws of who can go where in order to prevent people from rioting in the streets. So it does sound a lot like Tchum, but it's actually just we want to stop people fighting. Okay. And why is Shabbos the time when they decided to make this takana not during the week? On Shabbos, everybody's always having, having big meals, lots of wine. Drunk people do stupid things. So yeah, unfortunately, that hasn't changed in thousands of years.
Big Kiddush club.
It sounds like a bit more than Kiddush club. I've never seen a fist fight at a Kiddush club. Just saying. So, yeah. Your Kiddush club is actually a secret fight club. It could happen. So, now we're questioning the advisability of this takana. So it's like, so what's the difference? Like, if you can go to other places, then they'll still fight. Like, why is this helpful? Kaba b'lamate shav shenin lo navach. That dog is not in its place, will not bark for 7 years, meaning that chickens. So if you're only going to start a fight on their home turf, if it's on the but if it's an away game, they're just gonna like sit there meekly and be nice. The reverse case, so what the people of Chamtan want to get back into people who got there. No, like the people of there wouldn't let Chamtan beat them up. They just would be polite if they were in their city. So it's the reverse, where they beat them up on site. Yeah, it sounds like we're reading some weird drama from like 2000. I mean, we are reading some weird. Like it sounds like there should be a better backstory for why they're angry at each other, besides just drinking. But what can you do? Okay. Zafar Amar Ira Asuya Kekeshet Havai. So Tosha says, what is going on with here is that Kedar was a city that's shaped like a bow, right? And then that would mean that, and then Hamatan was the city that fell in the middle of the bow, right down south. So that way, whether you measured the, I think this is the reverse. You get, sorry, exactly. Hamatan, this thing, Hamatan is the bow, and Gedor is the square city, and that's how that would work, right? Because that would mean that the 2,000 amma from Gedor, right, wouldn't quite reach all the way into Hamtan, but the one from Hamtan would reach into Gedor. Yeah. This is the point that one of them could make it, one of them couldn't make it to their city. That's what it's talking about. So it's not Dakana, it's simply they're talking about they're talking about some of the end. So, and then Reb Dimi Bar Chirana Amar Ansher Gdola Vansher Tanave. But Reb Dimi says, no, really, this is support for a case. This is really a case of large cities and small cities that we discussed in the last half. Rav Kahana Matnihachi, Rav Tavimi Matnihachi, Rav Kahana taught one way, and Rav Tavimi said all right. Rav Tavimi taught differently in terms of who holds which shita. So Rasafra Rav Dimi Bar Chinana, Chadamar Ira Suya Kikesharava, Chadamar Anshir Tanav Anshir Dola. So he switches the order around. But again, it comes down to a question of, is it because there's three reasons why they can't go? Takana, because of a big city versus a small city, or because of the way that you measure the tchumen, because one of them is shaped like a bow, and one of them is basically by where the tchumen end in the middle there and wouldn't get you all the way to the bow. Okay, sorry, by the bow I mean the bent part of the bow as opposed to the drawstring. Okay. So now we're at the Mishnah, which we've been discussing. We hadn't quite read. So here's the actual Mishnah. So Ansha Ir Gdola, Mahalchanat Kol Ir Ktana, Vansha Ir Ktana, Mahalchanat Kol Ir Gdola. Okay. So Ketzad. So how does this work out? Okay, this is some draw. Oh, here it goes. Yeah, these are some drawings. The question is how would it work out? You can't reach, right? You got the square that you're leaving there, so we can see part of God there, or not at all, depending on the on it as well. Right. So that's just some options for how it could work out according to that case. And this is the air Ktana case. Again, look familiar because it's the same diagram we had above. It's going to be relevant for the Mishnah we're getting to in just a second. Right? Again, that was the first half of the Mishnah. This is that case. Big city, small city. Big city, small city, but not the reverse. Okay, so sad. So what do we mean by this? How does the swallowing work? So Mishahaya Be'ir Gdola, V'natan Ervo Be'ir Ktana, Be'ir Ktana, V'natan Ervo Be'ir Gdola, Mahalchat Kula, V'chutz Alal Paimama. Right, so again, if you put your Eruv in a city, you get 2,000 around that city. Whether you're actually in the bigger or smaller city, where your Eruv is will determine which direction you get to go in. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Rabbi Akiva said, In lo ela mimakom eruvo al paimama. Rabbi Akiva said, you have 2,000 amma from place you placed your Eruv. Amar Lan Rabbi Akiva, Iatamodim li benoten eruvo ma'ara, she'en lo. Rabbi Akiva says you only get 2,000 amma around your Eruv. And Rabbi Akiva said, don't you agree that if you placed your Eruv into a cave, you should also only get 2,000 amma? You don't get the parents starting around the edge of the cave. So Amrlo ematad is mancha ein bad yurin aval yesh bad yurin kula v'chutz al paimama in sakal matocha me'al gaba. So he says no, that's the difference. If you abandoned cave, you'd be right, Rabbi Akiva. But in the case where people have actually built out houses there and are living there, then it is considered to be a home. Therefore, it would count. Okay, so the lamoded shamru note in law. And when the person is measuring the measuring out their own tchum of 2,000, we say that you only get 2,000. If it hits the middle of a mountain, you don't get any farther. right? Okay, so here we go. Yes, this is the case of the Ma'ara. If you just get, so if you measure 2,000 steps, you get stuck in here, and that's as far as you get to go. Right? You're not going to go to the end of the Ma'ara. Okay. Now we're at the Gemara. Okay. Everything still clear? Okay. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Shabbat Be'ir Chareva. So if you resided in a city that's destroyed, according to the Chachamim, you could walk 2,000 amma around it as well, and meaning you get the whole destroyed structure as well as the 2,000 amma around it. But if you place your Eruv there, you only get 2,000 amma from where the Eruv Tchum is placed. Rabbi Elazar Omer, Echad Shabbat, V'echad Hiniach, Ma'alech Kula, V'chutzla, Paimama. So Rabbi Elazar says whether or not you reside at Rishamas or if you place your Eruv there, it's enough to make you get the whole Tchum of the destroyed city, and then 2,000 Amot around it. So okay, so that's the case. So so now okay, so that was just simply explaining, a case where the question is whether or not the Eruv can create the Eruv Tchum can make it as if it's being lived in, just like the previous case can as well. So now I've got a problem with this. So Amar Lahan Rabbi Akiva, Yat Tamodin Libanotin et Erevo Ma'ara, She'en Lo Mimakom Erevo Elapayim Amma. So he said, wait, don't you agree that in a case of a cave, it's 2,000 Amma around? And Amar Lo, Ematai, Bisman, She'en Bad Yurin. Ve'en Bad Yurin Module. Wait, since they would agree to the case of a cave that you only get from the place you placed it, not farther. My Ein Bad Yurin. No, that's that. We don't mean there's nobody currently there. When we say, but here in the case of the cave, as opposed to the case of the destroyed city, right? That means that it's not fit to live in, right? So, but on the other hand, the city, even if the city is currently empty, right? The fact that if you were to have squatted there, it would be you could have stayed there. Therefore, it's not considered to be the same degree of Ein Bad Yurin. That's how we differentiate between the two cases. So for instance, here we want to see what it looks like to have a settled cave. So here's a cave where you decided to put some. This is a city. That's what do you this part? Never mind. You know what I said. We'll see in just a minute. Okay. Tashma Shabbat Be'ir Afilu Hi Gedola Antiocha Mara Afilu Hi Kamara Sikemach Yehuda Mahalach Et Kula B'chutz Kula Paimama. So now here's another writer that seems to give problems. So if somebody resided in a city, even if it's a bit as big as the city of Antioch, or if they're in a cave, even as large as the city of Melchikiah, where he infamously fled in and then got caught. You go the whole area, get to 2,000 amot. Ani ir dumya ma'ara, mam'ara chareva, avia chareva, v'shavarin, avahana, paniach lo. So then what do we learn from here? That the Beit is saying that if the city is like, it has to be similar to the Ma'ara, meaning that if that just like the cave has nobody dwelling in it, similarly the city must be one that has nobody living in it. And similarly, if you resided in the city or the cave, it would be good. So, but if you let place an Eruv, it wouldn't work. So who is this opinion according to? This Breita. If you're talking about Rabbi Kiva, then why are we talking about a case of an abandoned or destroyed city? Even if somebody was living in the cave, Rabbi Kiva would still hold that you only get to that Amma from the place of your Eruv, right? Or if they're living in that destroyed city. Or you say this is according to the Rabbanan, and rather the whole argument is not about the city itself, it's based on are you residing there, therefore making it a livable location, or do you place your Eruv Tchum there, which is not sufficient? So, right, so which one is it? So we're not sure. So Lem Chema Ir Dumi Demara, El Ema Ma'ar Dumi. No, you got it backwards. Let's try the other way around. Not that you compare the city to the cave, but the cave is like the city. Ma'ir yeshiva, af ma'ir yeshiva. Just like the city has people living in it, so too does the cave. Rikivi damar ein lo b'makom erevo ela panama u'b'shabbat mode. So, meaning that Rabbi Akiva says that in general you get 2,000 amot from where you're um, from where your tchum is even in the cave, and he's saying that's only if you place your eruv tchum in there. But if you resided there, he would still agree to the chamim. Didn't we mention the case of Tzidkiyahu's cave? And Tzidkiyahu's cave wasn't a cave you lived in; it was an escape tunnel. Like it wasn't a living thing. You don't really live in there. Kamar Tzidkiyahu, below Kamar Tzidkiyahu, Kamar Tzidkiyahu, B'Dallah, below Kamar Tzidkiyahu, Dilo Hatam Chariva, Hacha Yeshiva. No, so we say it's different because the case of Tzidkiyahu, right? So it's like it and not like it. It's like in the fact that it's a very large cave, but it's not like it in the fact that Tzidkiyahu's cave nobody lived in. Our cave, people live in. Okay, Mar Yehuda, Ash Geshinu, Vnei Mavarachta, Ka Mojib, Aravayu, Beit Knishta, Beit Agubar. So Mar Yehuda found people of Marvachta used to place their Eruvin in a synagogue and in a shul in Beit of Agovar. Okay, and then Amrlu, he said to them, Abu Beitvei, he said, put your Eruv farther into the synagogue, and then you'll have a larger tchum based on where that is. That implies that Mar Yehuda holds that you don't get the whole area; you only get the place where you place the Eruv. Right? So he basically said to move it to the other side. Or they used to do it over here. He's like, no, put it on the other side of the shul. That way you'll get greater distance. So Amar Rava. So the Rava says, Palga. You keep making arguments. What are you being argumentative for? Eruvin late dechash lahad Rabbi Akiva says that's not how this works. In Eruvin, nobody holds Rabbi Akiva of the measure of the place of tchum. You only get around the tchum. Rather, everybody always askins that if you place your tchum inside of the city, you get the whole city. Inside of a house, you get from outside of the house, like it's Alamo. So stop with your basic chumras and just let them do what they're doing, and it won't make a difference as far as where their tchum is going to go. So now we have finished off figuring out how to measure our tchum around our city, and now hopefully we're all very well equipped and able to measure out tchumen around where we live, or we can just cheat and use the already done material. But hopefully this gives us some understanding of how that was compiled, and hopefully that'll help us understand it moving forward as well. Okay, next parak. Hadar im hanokri chatzer or im or imish she'ena moz be'eruv harei zeh oser. So now we're talking. Now we're moving from talking about issues of how to measure your tchum to issues of living with non-Jews inside of your eruv and how that will have a great effect on your eruv. So today we'll get through the Mishnah, and then we're going to end, I think, 2-3 minutes early because I'm going to have to run to catch the 8:15 of Shana Rabbah davening at the outside. So Hadar. So this is saying if you live with a non-Jew or somebody who doesn't believe in Eruvin, then that would prevent your Eruv Chatzerot from working, right? So now again, we're leaving our Eruv Chumin as last parak. Now we're back to our Eruv Chatzerot discussion. The question is, how do you right? So saying this, right. So if you have somebody again who's not, a non-Jew or somebody who doesn't agree to Eruv, so then they're not part of the Eruv. So again, who's somebody who doesn't believe in your Eruv? So that could either be somebody who is a Kuti, or one of the one of the other sects of Judaism that didn't hold Eruvin, or it should be somebody who refuses to take part in this Eruvin. It will create problems for you. So again, as far as what exactly that line means, the Gemara will explain more who is the Anamoda, but those are the options. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer Olam Eno Oser Ad Shiu Shnei Yisraelim Osrim Ze El Ze. Rabbi Elazar says no, non-Jews can't affect placing an Erev Chatzerot. Only another Jew can prevent your Erev Chatzerot from working. Right. So if you're the only Jew there, that's fine. But if there's another Jew there, then there's going to be a problem. The non-Jew. The non-Jew's presence is only a problem when there's two Jews. For far that is, we'll get to in the Gemara. Right. So that's the question. Then again, if you're simply a lone Jew, you're in the middle of nowhere, don't worry about it. But if you find out that there's another Jew in the building, then you're going to have to have more issues like setting for Erev. Okay. Korban Gamliel. I said the Stuki Echad Sheyad Dar Imanu B'Mavoy B'Yerushalayim V'Amar Lanu Abba Haru V'Hotziu Et HaKelim L'Mavoy Ad Shelo Yotzi V'Yasor Alecha. So Rabbi Gamliel relates a story that when they had a Stuki living in the same also the same elder that they did in Yerushalayim, and then he says that his father told us, meaning Rabbi Yehuda, that hurry up and get and put our utensils into the mavoi before the and that way so that we're using it before the Suki comes and does it, and then you won't be able to use the mavoi anymore on Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda Mulashon Acher. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Gamliel's father said something else. Rabbi Yehuda says it differently. Rather, he's saying, make sure that you take everything in and organize the mavoi, whatever you left out there, into our katzer, into our house, because otherwise, if not, once these Stuki start using it, you won't be able to use the area anymore, and that will be a problem. Okay, so again, I'm going to summarize what we've covered so far. If everybody has any questions about either Zichron or these two cases we got up to, just let me know. Okay, so summarizing the previous parak, which we're talking a lot about Erev Tchumen. So there's a couple of things to talk about for Erev Tchumen, how you measure it. So one thing is the general. We mentioned there's two basic logics for how Erev Tchumen works.
I think you're breaking up.
Oh, okay, sorry. Let me lean back from where it was. Okay, that's better. Better now?
Yeah.
Back on?
Yeah, keep talking. I think so.
Okay. So again, so last part is all about Tchumen, right? So Erev Tchumen is either the ability to make an Erev Tchumen is either based on the usage of pot, the use of bread, or the use of regal of your walking to somewhere. So
no, you're breaking.
Better? How about now?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. My Zoom just freaked out on me. Okay. Again, so Tchumen, right? So Tchumen is the as opposed is the fact that you can't go more than 2,000 amot out of your location. Right. So as far as the stars behind why you'd be forbidden to walk 2,000 amot, those were because walking 2,000 amot is considered to be a tier. It's considered to be a tircha, and it's not supposed to be done on Shabbos, right? So it's a lack of oneg or a lack of or a lack of the spirit of Shabbos. Then there's also the question, then another reason could be because you're supposed to reside in a given location on Shabbos in that location, and going more too far will be too far, right? So that's why you want to be in one place. And then we have an Eruv Tchumen, which allows you to relocate where your Tchumen is going to be based out of. So that operates based on based on where your residence is, which can be determined based on where you physically walk to by your regel, or it can be determined based on where you placed your bread, your pot. So then that's the basis of how that will work, right? So wherever it is, and then if your Tchum, your Eruv Tchumen can take the place of you. So now we're saying that if you placed it in, if you're making your Eruv Tchumen inside of the city, you get 2,000 amot around it. Around that whole city. And we mentioned about how that would work in terms of if you're near another city, right? When will you get into, when will you get the whole city? When will you only get part of it? When will we, also, again, if you're looking in one city, you might want to place your Eruv Tchumen in the other city in order to get a larger area. If the other city is larger. Discuss weird cases of strange shapes of cities, whether they be, shaped like L's, shaped like bows, circles and squares, and how we square them off, and how, or if they're square already, why you don't need to square them off. And we discussed again also which features of a city will extend your Tchum versus not, and at what point they can combine, and how the maximum distance between two cities is either 70 2/3 or 141 1/3, meaning for them to be considered to be one continuous city. And then the last we were talking about here was the case if you swap the whole thing. Not only can you walk the whole area, but you also can get, it's treated like it's Dalet Amot, just like the initial city that you resided in. You get the whole thing's like your Dalet Amot. You almost start measuring it from outside of the city. Similarly, if you had swallowed up a smaller city, so we say that you get basically, if your Tchum includes the whole thing, basically can jump the whole area past it and gain that extra distance. Instead of, let's say that city was 1,000 amot wide, so that means that 1,000 amot city is now only 4 amot, and therefore you'll gain 996 extra amot in that direction. Okay, so that is that's a condensed version of what Tchum is. Again, if anybody has any questions more about Tchum, please feel free to ask them, and hopefully we'll be moving on to more things about how to function with our Eruv Zerot the coming pair.
Go ahead. Everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Pleasure. Take care.